So in this last discussion about depressive disorders, we wanted to go over treatment. So first and foremost is kind of figuring out how many people actually get treated when they have a depressive episode. And as you can see, 37% have no treatment whatsoever. And these are among people that reported that they did have a major depressive episode. Some only had medication only, and, about 50% had some sort of health professional to see as well. So there's still some people that will get treatment, but there's a lot of people that still don't receive treatment. So we always have to think about what are some of those barriers in receiving treatment. There are a lot of different examples of treatment. These all come from Division 12, which is of the APA, but they are there to really see what are the most effective types of treatment there are. So what are our evidence-based treatments? And so as you can see, there is a whole lot to be said about different types of treatment. One of the first line is really the cognitive behavioral therapy. So cognitive therapy or behavioral activation, those two are listed in your book, and they definitely are the types of therapies that we rely on first and foremost. Another one that I want to talk about is interpersonal psychotherapy for depression, which has been seen to be as effective as these other two. So what I like about this is that it's kind of an interesting idea that one of the reasons why depression happens is because of these interpersonal relationships. So my mood is related to how interpersonal relationships are happening. So for example, you can imagine with grief, having a loved one die, that can lead you into a bereaved state that is kind of like depression, right? But that could also be grief of things like, let's say you're an adult and your kids are going off to college for the first time. So being an empty nester, that could be part of that grief as well. You also see this with things like role change. So, if kids are going off to college, right, that it might have a big role change. That might disrupt that family dynamic, for example. We also have things like role disputes. So this often happens with teenagers, for example, where you see teenagers wanting more control over their lives compared to sometimes what parents want. So what are your roles? How does that work? And having conflict in that area might be one of those things that could lead to depression. And last is loneliness or social isolation. So actually, if you are removing yourself from your social interactions. Maybe this is why so many people became depressed over the years of COVID. So a lot of things that we want to do in interpersonal psychotherapy is to really think about, like, where are your social supports? Who are those people that are there for you? But also who are those people that might trigger some of your depressive symptoms, right? Maybe somebody that might invalidate your emotions. That might be a really hard thing for you to deal with. The second part is to really do a communication analysis. So you basically go step by step. Okay, so tell me about this recent argument you had with your significant other. And then you go, well, at first they said blah, 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 blah. And then you break that down. Well, what does that mean? What were the words that were actually being said? And then what did you say? What did you actually mean? So you're really trying to improve communication, because sometimes that is one of the biggest issues is, oh, I believe that they said something or did something, but I was actually wrong, or I couldn't actually tell if they really meant that. Really think about mastering those social skills. So you can have more effective social communication. The last thing is to minimize dependency on others. So oftentimes, especially when you've been feeling depressed, it may be easier to kind of, give somebody else the reins. But at the same time, that could be really hard for you. And so you might be wanting to be more dependent on other people. So one of the things you want to do is actually minimize that dependency so that the person can kind of live independently and not need as much, as many, not experience as many difficulties in an interpersonal context. So IPT is one of those beneficial therapies. And this is one of those things that, depending on what the person's experiences are, you might want to choose IPT over something like cognitive behavioral therapy, just because it deals with some different aspects to it. Lastly, we got to get into some of the newer things that's happening, and that is treatment with psychedelics. In March 2019, the FDA approved ketamine for depression. Ketamine on, street drugs used to be, be called that you're going through a K-hole. So it has been used like recreationally, but it's been used a lot in as an anesthetic. So ketamine was actually used for children undergoing surgery. So that's kind of been an interesting thing. But people do get better with ketamine. You will see that within hours, somebody will be relieved of their depressive symptoms and the symptoms that they've been having. One of the thoughts is that it might actually change some of the neurocircuitry of the brain. Other thoughts are that it kind of removes you from those emotional experiences that you have. Still, ketamine is not a cure-all just yet. You can still relapse and have another depressive episode. So some people, this might be a repeated treatment that you have. There are other ones too that have been coming out, like psilocybin, magic mushrooms has been another one that might be an up-and-coming treatment. So yeah, there's some things that are going to go on, and we'll see what happens. So there are lots of treatment options for depression. I know I only really talked about IPT, but you have other types of therapies that are available. You have medications that are useful. And that's one of those things that there might be a time to choose what's best for you. So one size doesn't just fit all. It seems like CBT and medication may be better than just one of them alone. So if you are feeling depressed, it may be useful to actually seek out treatment for both. So that's all I have for depression. We should get into bipolar disorder. Otherwise, hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.